Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Thyroid Trust 24 Questions interviews. I'm Lorraine from the Thyroid Trust and I have hypothyroidism. And with me today is, very excitingly, the author Michael Rosen, who also has hypothyroidism. Welcome, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This is so lovely. Michael has been an absolutely lovely friend to us on social media. This is actually our very first ever face-to-face conversation, so we're really excited, a little bit nervous if I'm honest, about doing this. But if I just explain to people who might be watching this as their first ever 24 questions interview, just explain what it is. So the Thyroid Trust 24 questions interviews are a chance for us as a little patient-led charity for people with thyroid disease to get to know some of our thyroid friends a bit better. And also to share those conversations with a wider audience. And that has a sort of twofold aim of helping to raise awareness of thyroid disease, but also helping people who may have a thyroid condition to feel a little bit less alone, because thyroid disease isn't talked about very much, and that's one of the things that we think needs to be changed. So obviously to have the opportunity to have a conversation with such a high-profile individual with thyroid disease is wildly exciting for us. And we have, the way we do these interviews is we have a kind of standard set of questions that we ask, and they're usually about having a nice relaxed conversation. And what we did this time was we said to our network, we're talking to Michael Rosen, would anyone have any particular questions for him? And of course people had lots. So Michael, I hope you don't mind, a lot of the questions that we've got are very thyroid focused, because people are very curious about how, you know, someone like yourself has a thyroid condition, how it's affected you. And so we'll ask some of our standard questions from the series, but you've seen the questions in advance. If there's any you don't like, just say, no, I'm not going to answer that, and we'll move on. First question we always ask is, I think this is very suitable for you as such a wordy person. What is your favourite word, please, Michael, if you have one?
One of the favourite words is a word that my mum used. My mum revealed to us when we were 10 that her first language wasn't English.
Oh.
Her first language was Yiddish, a language spoken by Eastern European Jews in the main 100 years ago, and then in the diaspora of Jews from that part of the world. And it's been spoken in Paris, in London, and of course, New York. And in the film industry, people know words by people like Mel Brooks and so on.
But and in Glasgow, where I grew up as well, lots of Yiddish words floating around, I remember from my childhood.
Ah, well, there you go. So my mum revealed, though, it was her first language. And this seemed quite amazing. We had no idea of this. So I can remember very well that her speech, the way she talked, was full of words that later I would find out were Yiddish. I mean, some of the first words that I ever learned, like the word for my belly button, would you believe? I didn't know it was a belly button. It was a pippic.
Oh, I've not heard that one.
And then the word for a drying up cloth, a dishcloth or a tea towel in my house was a schmutter.
Actually, I have heard that one.
Yeah, which is the Yiddish for a rag. But one word she used that I've hardly ever come across anyone else using it. She would come into my brother, into our room, the room of me and my brother, and say, "God, this place is a mishedemonk." And then she'd walk out and would say, "Hang on, Mum, hang on, what's a mishedemonk?" She'd say, "Well, this place." So that was, as much as you got as the meaning of the word mishedemonk. I've Googled and Googled about mishedemonk in any number of spellings, mishedemonk, and many others. And the only thing I ever found was a Dutch junk shop called mishedemonk. Oh. So in my mind's eye now, I can see our bedroom as a mishedemonk. In other words, as a Dutch junk room.
Fantastic. Maybe. That's a really good word. And you're going to hate the follow-up question that we've got about your favourite word. Because later on, I'm going to ask you to do something with that. I'll be very interested to see what you come up with. Next question. How did you come to know about and be connected with the Thyroid Trust?
Again, I think it was Google. I was Googling probably about 20 years ago, I think. I don't know how long you've been in existence.
We're very new, so it wouldn't have been us that you would have found 20 years ago. That's interesting.
Thyroid UK, maybe.
Thyroid UK have been around for about that long, yes.
Right. So first of all, I found my way to Thyroid UK. I hope you're not enemies or anything.
No, we're definitely not enemies with Thyroid UK.
Very good.
We're good friends with Lynn at Thyroid UK, and we've done work with them.
And then I think my guess is I was another search. I put thyroid into Twitter, and I found you through Twitter.
Yeah, we're super
probably
active on
about
Twitter.
5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
A bit less. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it would have been less than that, because we're started as a group of patients. We now work closely with leading medics as well. And I was organising support events for thyroid patients when I was really unwell back in 2010, 2011, 2012 in London. And then and that was with another charity who you may also have heard of, British Thyroid Foundation. And then in 2017, that little group of patients in London, we were offered funding to set up a new charity. And the reason for that was so that we could carry on doing support and information events in London with really good speakers, which we were really committed to carrying on doing, but also to start to work on awareness raising and advocacy work to try and sort of really raise the profile of the disease and sort of have some sort of quite high level conversations with people who can make a difference to access to treatment and things. So we only completed our registration with the Charity Commission in 2019.
Well, that's when I must have discovered you, surfing around on Twitter, and you popped under the name. With the name Thyroid, which is appropriate enough.
Yes, absolutely. So we're the Thyroid Trust, and talking about the other thyroid charities, we work very much in partnership with all of them, and we think that's something that's really important to do. So we published a major report on access to specialist treatment, where we worked with British Thyroid Foundation, Thyroid UK, also as an internet based activist group called ITT and TPA, who've been around for a long time. So there's lots of little groups, and as the Thyroid Trust, we try and sort of unify everybody and make sure that we're all sharing reliable information and supporting each other. So I'm glad I asked that question, because you thought you'd known us even longer than you actually have.
Yeah.
So you've written an amazing book. You've written an amazing book recently, and you've written lots of books. But for us, it was very exciting that you actually wrote a book about your experience of being diagnosed with thyroid disease and how that affected you. And it took you a long time to get your diagnosis. Took a long time to be treated. It sounds like from your story, this is not my nose, which I could really relate to, because I remember peering at my face and thinking, who is this person, when I was really unwell. It sounds as though, you spent quite a long time with lots of signs and symptoms, but you didn't really know what was going on. Would you say that that's a sort of fair assessment? When did you first start to realize, do you think, that you weren't kind of your old self anymore?
Well, the medical word for it is insidious, which has got slightly changed. It now just means bad. But insidious means an illness that slowly creeps up on you. And so it's quite a useful word. So what I can do is, when I sort of run through the video of my life, I can, obviously you always have the benefit of hindsight, and the symptoms. So you can work backwards and say, well, when did I first get the symptom of, let's say it's swollen eyelids, let's say it's watery eyes, let's say it's swollen fingers, let's say it's suddenly feeling heavy in my thighs when I'm sort of trying to run. When did I suddenly feel that my voice had got rather croaky? When did I first feel that my skin started feeling rough? When did my hair go sort of like kind of fuzzy and wiry? So all this range of symptoms, I can work backwards. Okay, I can even sort of almost name the year to 67, 68. I remember a guy taking photographs of me. I'd done some speeches at university, and he said, could I take some pictures of you? And I remember looking at the pictures and being shocked by what my eyes looked like, that my eyes seemed sort of puffy. So that was in about 1968. 68. Now run forward, my thyroid disease, hypothyroidism, was diagnosed in March 1981.
It's a long
so
time,
there's 13 years of insidious symptoms building up. When I look at photos of myself in 1980, it seems absolutely incredible that there weren't doctors, or indeed my father and stepmother were still alive. My stepmother still is. And other people who knew me well weren't rushing me to doctors or hospitals and saying, look, you are seriously ill. This isn't you just, pigging out on Mars bars. there's something very strange about the way you speak. Going into schools, there were kids who drew attention to the fact that I looked so white. And I used to think, well, as they were largely children of Caribbean origin, that they were having
Maybe
a
that's
laugh at
what
the
they
fact
thought.
that, my skin was white and their skin was darker. They were people of
Yeah.
color,
Yeah.
which is fine, of course.
Yeah.
That's part of the banter that goes on in schools. Some of
Yeah.
it not nice, but as it happens, that I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
Somebody else asked me whether I smoked weed. I've never smoked. I've never smoked any drugs of any sort, or never taken any drugs. I hardly ever drunk any alcohol.
Yeah.
And she said, "Your speech is slurred." This was a teenage girl in a school, a secondary school.
Gosh.
I remember thinking, "Is it?" Well, in fact, the way I would have said it, and there are recordings of me speaking, is like this: "Is it?
Wow.
I spoke like that." I'm not exaggerating at all. There are tapes, old cassettes of me speaking like this. In fact, one of my kids, my own kids, having heard it after I, on thyroxine and so on, he's played those tapes and he used to imitate me. He used to walk around. There was a little story that on one of these tapes called The Knee-High Man. And one of his ways of taking the mickey out of me would be to sit there going, "The Knee-High Man." But it wasn't actually an exaggeration.
Oh.
So 13 years of all those
13
symptoms
years.
I quickly ran through, slowly developed at different times. And of course, and anyone who's in this field knows, we don't make the connections. They are in actual fact very significant, because not many people get swollen peripheral limbs of toes and hands, as well as necessarily having watery eyes, as well as their voice changing, their hair changing, their skin texture changing. These are all very different things.
Yeah.
You don't go to the doctor because your hair's gone fuzzy.
No.
You don't go to the doctor because, my voice is a bit deeper. You don't connect it up.
Yeah.
I mean, doctors do because that's their job. But we as patients, or indeed just as individuals walking about, we don't make the connections. That's the key thing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's that collection of symptoms which is more likely to pinpoint to thyroid disease. If you just have one or two symptoms, all of those things could be something else, but it sort of builds up a really compelling picture. And this is one of the things that we really want more people to know, that if they've got things like that going on, it could be their thyroid disease. And I could really relate when you said someone mentioned something to you and you said, "Oh, do I?" I remember that. I remember somebody saying to me at work, "Why are you always so tired?" Because whenever someone said to me, "How are you?" I'd say, "Oh, I'm a bit tired, but I'm okay." And someone said, "Why are you always so?" "Oh, I don't know." Never crossed my mind that was unusual, because it insidiously creeps up on you, doesn't it?
Well, I remember something. I was out with the family and another family, and we were walking in Wales, and this would have been 1978 or 9, so it's pretty advanced by then. And me saying, "I don't think I'm going to get up this hill," and the other said, "What hill?"
Yes.
So I was on a walk and I could just about keep up, but I just said, "It's really difficult." And they were going, "But it isn't hilly, Michael."
Yeah. And they were probably laughing at you.
Yeah.
"Oh, you silly old thing," when actually we want people to go, "Oh, thyroid
indeed.
checked." Yeah. Did you feel scared at any point?
I don't think so. I think, right. So and this is really difficult, one of the effects of severe hypothyroidism is to depress you. And the way it depresses you is not just you feel depressed, but it depresses many of your reactions.
Yes.
So here's something rather sad. My mum died in 1976. So by then I'm about 8 years into hypothyroidism. My mum died in 1976. And when I think back to both her dying and the funeral, I am without emotion.
Oh, gosh.
So my mum died and I wasn't upset.
Because you were so unwell.
Right. So what hypothyroidism seems to do, or did with me at any rate, was to depress extreme emotions of any kind.
Yeah.
Great happiness, great sadness, and indeed to just make me think, c'est la vie. It's a kind of resigned thing, que sera, sera. Many cultures have words to describe that feeling that, well, that's life.
Yeah.
That's the way I am. Yeah. So if I thought, oh, well, I don't seem to be able to go jogging anymore, I'd just think, oh, well, I suppose I'm a bit old. You know how old I was when I was saying that? 28.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm doing the sums. Yeah, really young. Yeah.
You know, I was resigning myself, no, a wee bit older, but anyway, I was resigning myself. I was junking myself, if you like. And again, it's a sort of vicious circle that goes on with hypothyroidism, is that ironically, you are sort of less aware of these micro changes because the illness is depressing what seems to be the part of your brain that is affected by emotions.
Yeah.
And so I know some people, they experience kind of tearfulness.
Yes, I had a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
For me, it just felt, now looking back on it, as if it was really a bit like the fact that my fingers were swollen, and so my sense of touch was damaged, that also my sense of my brain touch, my feeling, or the posh literary word is the affect, not the effect. In other words, how we are affected.
Yes.
So I saw there's this moment, as I say, 1976, when my mum died, and I feel sort of sad now that I didn't feel sad at the time.
So sad. Yeah.
It's horrific, really. I mean, I just remember sort of kind of, I won't say shrugging, but just sort of thinking, oh, well, mum's died. I mean, she was 56. I mean, it was a tragedy. It was terrible. And she was quite well known in her field, and hundreds of people came to the funeral. And I remember thinking, why are they all so upset?
Oh, gosh.
I mean, it's awful.
It is, isn't it? It's scary, the effects it has on your mind as well as on you physically. You talked earlier about all my hair and all my hands swelling, but those sorts of very, very insidious effects on your brain and that sort of dulling of your natural senses is, I mean, I find it very scary to look back on it and think about it now. But yeah, you're right. It's another word I hear for a lot of the time is apathy. That when you're very hypothyroid, you just become very apathetic.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
I remember watching a lot of daytime television and just vaguely thinking, I must be really ill to be watching this rubbish. There's some great stuff on daytime television, but I really was watching rubbish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really interesting take on it, because so many people I think do get very frightened, but also that just sort of deadness of emotion. I think we can all really relate to that as well. And again, another reason why we want people who might have someone in their life who's got thyroid condition to be looking out for those signs, because it's hard to advocate for yourself when you just think everything is, oh, well, I'm getting old, c'est la vie. And maybe if someone's being like that, then we need their friends and families to step in for them. What, if anything, do you wish you'd known and asked about when you were first diagnosed?
I was diagnosed almost by luck. It's a silly thing to say, but basically I was in the wrong part of the hospital. I was in the renal unit because my GP had run a test on my kidneys. I think I got 2. And it looked like I was having a bit of bother with my kidneys. He had, before that, diagnosed me as having conjunctivitis because my eyes were watering. So the GPs were trying to figure out what these odd things were going on. So he ran this kidney test. So he sent me off to the renal unit at Bart's. And Mr. Baker, the consultant there, I can see him absolutely now with my notes in front of him, and he's staring at me. And he's not looking at his notes, and he's going, yes, go on, and sort of asking me to describe things. And then suddenly he pushed the notes to one side. He said, I think that's a load of rubbish. You are hypothyroid. Now, because I did a bit of medical training, I am not a doctor. I'm not pretending to be a doctor, but I did do some medicine. The moment he said that, I knew what it was.
Oh.
So you now have to wish back, this was 1981, whoosh back to 1964 to 5 when I was doing a bit of medicine, 64, 66. I can remember, I immediately came into my mind, my medical textbook. I know what we used to call it, Sammy Wright. It's Wright and Samuelson or something. We used to call it Sammy Wright. 2 photographs on the page of a woman. And first of all was the before, and then there was the after. The before, the woman looked like me. Big, puffy moon face, eyelids swollen, hair sort of frizzy. And then after she, for a year, she's been on thyroxine. And there she was. And she reminded me a little bit of Vera Lynn, quite a sort of bony face, and nice live hair, you know. And I just, into my mind came that 2-way picture, before and after, just boom, the moment he said that. And at first I was, you know, very, very sad because I felt I'd lost 12, 13 years of my life.
So you suddenly knew that
I suddenly
realization came to you straight away. Yeah.
Exactly. I knew in a moment that all the things, all the micro adjustments I'd made in my life of the things I couldn't do, whether it was exercise, whether it was deciding I couldn't go on with a particular kind of job because I wasn't up for it. I mean, as it happens, it's in TV and film, which requires 16-hour days, 18-hour days. And I'd sort of resigned myself at round about, I don't know, the age of 25, 26, this kind of work wasn't really for me. A lot of adjustments I made in my personal life and so on. And I felt incredibly sad.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So there was that sense that obviously, people will know that I've just had this experience of COVID.
Yeah, which
and that's another
well.
kind of regret, but I'll leave that to one side for the minute, because that's a sudden bump that happens to you, analogous to maybe a car accident. But this felt like something that I just either let slip or other people around me had let slip. And so I had this terrible sense of regret and loss. And it wasn't remakeable. I could obviously turn my life around now in that sense, but I'd lost things en route. So that was the first thing. And so I suppose brief answer to your question is, why didn't I have help?
Yes.
Why didn't? Because I then went from the renal unit to the metabolic unit, where of course they immediately started slapping thyroxine into me, and hooray, that was it. But nobody said, I think you're going to probably need to speak to someone to talk about what's happened to you for these last 12 years.
As in psychological support.
Yeah. So instead, I did something that is basically, just to be crude about it, a pain in the butt. What I did was go around to people who knew me, sat in their front rooms, and sort of nagged them to tell me what they thought, what they'd thought of me. And what I can see now in retrospect, not only was I boring and tedious and annoying, but that I was desperately trying to sort of get them to tell me what maybe they might have told me and didn't. And I got myself into quite a mess for 2 or 3 years, sort of trying to find out who I'd been. And so in the end, I decided I was kind of 3 people. I was the person before I got ill. I was the person for the 12, 13 years I was ill. And now I was this new person who was trying to come to terms with it. And that was my sort of rationalization of it, this way of understanding and putting it sort of on the shelf, if you like, that I was 3 chapters Michael Rosen. And that that kind of helped in a way to work that out. But I shouldn't have, been thrown on my friends and family in that way. I should have had a chance to have maybe once a month been to see a counsellor, talked about it, said what was disturbing me. And he or she could have said, well, you must remember, maybe they might have said, you must remember, in a way it was a kind of trauma. Or in a way, when you say you were a different person, well, that is true. We are brain, we are body, it's one. And part of this system is the nervous system. Part of this system are all the others, but there's also the hormone system. And the hormone system is this very subtle, nuanced thing that we're still trying to discover about, because it's basically largely triggered by the pituitary. It surges all around the body. It can be triggered by environmental things, genetic things. It's not totally a mystery, but that's what's gone on for you. And the endocrine system is part of you, hormones, endocrine. And, this is what's happening. And, you've had your hormone system has been as ill as if you'd broken a leg or had severe pneumonia, except on this occasion, it was something that lasted for this length of time. So I needed help to be told that, and for just, again, in Yiddish, to just spiel, just to sit there, talk it out. You can see I'm a talker, but to talk it out in a safe place, not to have dumped on other people.
Totally relate to all of that. And we see that so much at the events that we do, which of course are all online at the moment. And it's really difficult when you're holding online meetings with lots of people for people to be able to talk about their own illnesses as much as we want them to. But, you know, prior to COVID, we were doing meetings in London and they were three hours long, and we'd have a speaker and we'd have a Q&A session, and then you'd have a big chunk of time where people could just talk to each other. People are desperate to talk about their thyroid disease. And I think that, you know, the fact that the system should provide counselling when people have a diagnosis after such a long time, and sometimes we're so ill with thyroid disease and it's just not acknowledged. I'm going to put that down as one of the things that we would love to make happen somehow in the fullness of time. And sort of developing peer support networks is one thing, but there should be more professional support, because if you talk to someone else with thyroid disease, they're not necessarily going to say the right things back to you. There should be a proper formal process for supporting people.
Yeah, I mean, we have knowledge from the inside. The point is the medical profession has got knowledge from the outside.
Yeah.
When they say hormone,
safe space, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. And when they say hormone, they know they've looked at it. They've looked at hormones. They know the difference between, you know, the hormones produced by our thyroid, the hormones produced by our adrenal gland, and so on, and all the other hormones. And these are, you know, very subtle interplay. You know, there's a very subtle thing of biofeedback, for example, that when one hormone goes up, the other one goes down. You know, women's periods totally depend on this brilliant interchange. We need people hormones to explain this to us, the way one hormone can rise and another one go down. This is, you know, it's not people. You know, we just have our bodies. We can't read our bodies in the way doctors do. So we need a balance between inside out and outside in order to get hold of it.
Yeah. Professional advice and all just emotional support as well. Yeah. You mentioned you were in the hospital and they gave you thyroxine and then you were fine. Was it difficult for you to get the right treatment, or was it actually pretty straightforward? Once they started treating you with thyroxine, you were well quite quickly?
Right. So it's all a bit of a mystery. So I've been on levothyroxine. Now, when I finally built up to the full dose, the doctors at Bart's put me on 200 mcg. So let's just talk numbers. 200 mcg, 200 micrograms of levothyroxine.
Yeah, which for people who don't know, I'll just say that's quite a high dose. It's a relatively high dose.
That's what I was on. And I was on that for quite a few years. I don't know exactly how long. But then I think maybe moving from one doctor to another and having a blood test, up went the arms and said, oh no, you're too high.
Right.
And so they brought me down to, I think, 150.
Yeah.
And I felt different. I felt a bit different. And I thought, oh my goodness, am I feeling some of these symptoms that I used to feel? I mean, one of my measures is beating an egg. Okay.
Right. Oh yeah, so, because your arm gets tired, doesn't it?
Right. So in medicine, there's a thing called summation. That's to say where your muscle goes up to a level of maximum performance and then kind of freezes.
Right.
So this happens to all of us. You know, if you beat an egg like that, and then you feel that forearm eventually get tired.
Or quite quickly.
You get a kind of cramping. What happens with hypothyroids like us, when you're in full disease, as opposed to with the pills, that moment where it kind of freezes, kind of cramping, is much earlier. And I thought when I was down to 150 that indeed it was happening early. And then I'd stare in the mirror and say, are my eyes watery? And then I'd sort of think, what's my hair? So suddenly down to 150, I started getting worried. Anyway, I boodled along with 150. The doctor said I had to be on it because I was in the wrong place of the window. So anybody who has hypothyroidism know that they run these tests. They're basically on the levels of thyroxine in your blood and the activity of your pituitary gland. So they were saying that the thyroid levels were too high because the pituitary gland was being depressed. So it works like this. As that goes up, this goes down. As that goes up, this goes down. And they want it to be there. And they have two windows for these two things. All right. So they were worried. And they were saying if it's too high, there's a danger that you'll get osteoporosis. I can't even say the word, but anyway.
Osteoporosis.
Thank you. Osteoporosis. So we worry about that, and we worry about the effect on your heart.
Yeah.
So I went, oh, right, blimey. So they took me then down, so this is a few years later, took me down to 125.
Oh, so you were on 150 and you thought maybe you were a bit hypo, but they took you down further because your
So
blood
now
test results were showing you were maybe still on too much. Yeah.
So now I'm on 125. So I've been on 125 now for something like between 5 and 10 years, something like that, maybe 10 years. And I have to say, though I hit the windows, I do have concerns. So just leaping ahead, I have to go to the eye doctor at hospitals because one of the effects of COVID was that I got microbleeds in my brain and it knocked out the optic nerve. So I have to keep going to the ophthalmologist. I have to say that carefully, ophthalmologist at the Whittington fairly regularly. And only last week, the nurse went up right close to me and she said, "Do you know your eyelids are swollen?" And I went, ka-chung! And, you know, I only have to hear eyelids are swollen for this to make me think, well, is my dose too low? I mean, I have another thing. I have swollen ankles. And I'm thinking, I don't have swollen hands, but they're all right. But so I think, well, that's a bit strange, isn't it? So anyway, who knows? So here we are in 2021. How long have I been taking thyroxine? Since 1981. So for 40 years, I've been taking thyroxine. In fact, I will celebrate. Oh, yes, I've just passed the anniversary, March. So I'm 40 years on thyroxine.
Birthday.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still, if you like, in that state of unease that maybe they haven't quite got the dose right.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, you know,
did you feel totally well when you were on that higher dose before they started reducing you? Did you feel good on 200, or did you never feel quite right?
No, I felt terrific. But then people laugh and they say, "Yeah, well, you would," you know, as if some or other
might have been over medicated.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, so when I meet people, I do say, "What are you on? You know, what are yours?" And you know, is it related to weight? Is it related to your metabolic rate? Because this is a mystery, you know, in a way.
Oh, I can tell you something about that. So the new NICE guidelines, which were just published at the end of 2019, they actually say now that you should be started on a dose which is likely to be optimal for you, rather than starting on a low dose and slowly titrating up as they did for a long time, or starting on a very high dose and titrating down as they used to do back in the day when my sister was diagnosed in the 80s. So the optimal dose is likely to be, they now say, a microgram for every 1.6 kilograms of body weight.
Right. You have to do the sums for me.
Well,
I guess I'm around 80 kilograms.
Yeah, so you probably need around about 125.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Very good.
That's what they say.
Okay, well, I'll stop whinging and mithering about my swollen eyelids.
Well, I mean, have you ever gone this? Another question was, you know, so are you aware of the fact that, you know, there are some patients who need specialist treatment and sometimes that can be really difficult to get? And have you looked into things like that? And is that something you're interested in?
As mostly I'm all right.
Yeah.
I mean, I do get cold, but then that's also a function of the fact that I think I came out of the coma with very, very low blood pressure. So sorry, I've done a shortcut there. I was in an induced coma for 40 days
with
in
COVID-19 last year.
With COVID-19, not thyroid.
Which we do want to talk about.
Well, that's all right. Maybe we don't have time. It's not related to the thyroid as far as I know, unless for some reason or another, someone will find out in 100 years' time that we hypothyroids, excuse me, have a susceptibility to certain viruses. Who knows? That may be a whole other ballgame.
Yes, more research certainly needed. Yeah. Yeah. Would you say, my next question was going to be, does your condition still impact on your life, but do you feel you've moved on now and it's well under control? I think you've kind of sort of answered that one, really, haven't you? So my next question is more uplifting. What would you say was the most joyous thing that you regained following treatment?
Movement.
Nice.
I mean, it's very hard to describe because very few people get as far as I did. I mean, I put it this way. There was no thyroxine in my blood and no antibodies that had destroyed my thyroid gland. So the doctor who looked at my blood test for the first time in the metabolic unit, I'm not joking. His name was Dr. Gesundheit. Nobody believes me, but you can look him up. He's at
No, I
Stanford.
know. I saw somebody on Twitter saying that they also knew him. They vouched for you, didn't they?
Exactly.
This
He's
person
at Stanford
exists.
University. So look him up. Lovely Dr. Gesundheit. And he's American. And I remember him opening it and he said, technically, you're dead.
Yes. You've
and I kind of stared at him and he said, if not dead, you should be in a torpor. And I loved the way he said that word.
I'm so glad you said that, because you've written down he said it in a good way. And I was like, how did he say it? Say that again.
Yeah. In a torpor.
Fantastic.
And I kind of looked at him and he then said, you've got to come in straight away because this is really serious. You could collapse at any moment.
Yeah.
So that's where I'd got to. And so, yes, I went in. So at that point, all I can say is that I found walking about quite difficult. And I remembered only the week before I'd been out doing some filming for schools television with a class of secondary kids who were writing poems about their locality. And I remember thinking, gosh, it's really hard walking along with them.
Yeah.
And one of the first things, and it was complete joy, was that I could walk and run. And in fact, that's what I started doing, was running.
You're running. Amazing.
So I went and I ran the East London half marathon. And I called myself on my T-shirt, the Abominable Slow Man.
Oh, fantastic.
Because I was I ran a half marathon in, I think, just short of 2 hours.
That's
and
amazing.
I was just delighted that I could do that.
That's huge. Movement. That's the thing.
And of course, in a way, everything gets moving. So that's also a cunning poetic metaphor for everything. My mind, my brain, everything got moving. But I guess the joy of movement was wonderful.
Love that. I just have to tell you, on the subject of running and being able to run, it's International Thyroid Awareness Week is coming up in May. And we marked this for the first time last year. And I dressed up as a butterfly and ran through my town. Because, of course, the thyroid is a butterfly-shaped gland.
It is.
And that was such good fun, and people were so enthusiastic about it and so nice about it. We had a few other people did the same thing around the country. Helga did it in central London. She got photos of her standing next to the Houses of Parliament, dressed up as a butterfly.
Well,
so,
call
if you
on
want
me.
to do another run, think about getting some butterfly wings and do more awareness raising. That would be
call on
amazing.
me. I'll be there.
Brilliant. Okay, well, it's the 25th of May is World Thyroid Day, so you might regret saying that.
Yeah, 25th of May. I've got an appointment at the Royal Free at 2:10.
Oh, you could run down the hill to the Royal Free. I remember that hill well, between Muswell Hill and the Royal Free.
Very good. Look,
They'd love to see you in a butterfly outfit. International
Thyroid Day. Look, it's going in the diary.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, so it's World Thyroid Day is on the 25th of May, and then that whole week up until the 31st of May is International Thyroid Awareness Week.
Good.
So we want to make lots of noise then.
Count me in.
Oh, amazing. Fantastic. Where do you go to for information about your thyroid condition now? Do you just talk to your doctor, or do you go online? Or do you have reams of thyroid books at home?
Sure.
Sammy's, whatever that book was.
Sammy Wright. A bit out of date now, I think. Yeah. I go online.
Yeah.
And the advantage of online is there are papers. They're quite hard to understand, obviously, but and then I get Thyroid UK Journal. I get that.
Yeah.
And that's mostly where I go. And also I read, things that go up on Twitter, hear what people say. So I try to keep up with that. I haven't had a chat with the doctor for a few years, I think. I don't think so. But mostly
quite well equipped to get information from different sources. Yeah. You might enjoy some of our information videos where we've had leading clinicians come and give talks about, for example, managing hypothyroidism, but also things like thyroid surgery as well. We have an amazing information video about that.
Oh, right.
Which is really interesting. So we don't just do these sort of like patient chats. We also get experts to give talks and then put those online as well. So you might enjoy some of those. Right. Next question is the one that I said to you were going to regret having your favorite word as I'm going to try and say it, mishadamok, because can you say your favorite word, please, in a sentence?
Well, I start with my mum saying, this place is a mishadamok. In other words, my brother in my bedroom, brothers in my bedroom. And you can use it to mean a sort of mess up in life as well, you know.
Is it like a big balagang, a Misha de Mock?
Sounds like it. I mean, as I say, my mum's the only person I've ever heard use it, other than this Dutch junk shop.
Right, so the next question then, can you make it rhyme?
De monk.
I knew you could do the sentence.
Elephant trunk.
Ooh, he's
oh, yeah.
Oh, he's very
Nelly
good.
the elephant packed her trunk and ended up in a Misha de Monk.
Oh, you've done it. High five. See what happens when you get a professional poet on 24 questions? They just
Nelly the elephant packed her trunk and ended up in a Misha de Monk.
Oh, I love it. Love it. That's brilliant. Thank you. You have passed the 24 questions challenge. You were very unwell last year, obviously, with COVID-19. You spent a long time in intensive care. You were taken care of by some absolutely amazing people, and you've written really movingly about the experience in your book, which just come out recently, many different types of love. Have you always been so aware of being surrounded by love, or was it your experience of being so vulnerable and so well cared for that made you feel that way?
Mostly people have been very kind to me in life generally.
Nice. Good.
So that's fine.
Good.
I don't think I've ever experienced that kind of care, consideration, devotion by complete strangers. You know, we have the phrase, the kindness of strangers, but this is more than that. You know, I've got here
exceptional, wasn't it?
The thing that I've put in the book. This is, can you read that?
Diary.
Yeah, the patient diary. Now this is, look, I'll just randomly open a page and you can see.
What an amazing thing to have, and to be able to just do that, open a page.
Handwritten. Afternoon, Michael. I'm Holly again. Today I'm looking after you with lovely Nurse Joy. We've had a busy day or two. It's scared. Anyway, I think they're bathing me there. Anyway, washing me. So, you know, they're playing my playlist for me that my family sent in.
It's so beautiful. What was on your playlist? Was it up-tempo or calming tunes?
It was Talking Heads and Otis Redding and the Rolling Stones and things like that. Yeah. And that Bee Gees one, I think. Anyway.
Good, I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
So, you know, to have that and that sense of care by complete strangers, I've never experienced that before. And, you know, they saved my life. And, you know, there's a sort of tipping, isn't there, between people using their knowledge and skill to help you, like all the way back to Mr. Baker, diagnosing me in the renal department and getting it right. And I feel tremendous gratitude to him that he was so quick and clever and used his knowledge as consultants do, sort of thing.
Yes. And then waited 13 years to be seen by someone like him, of course.
Yeah. And also that he had to make that adjustment. I'm Mr. Renal, I'm kidneys. To make that adjustment, I just feel a lovely feeling about him.
Yeah.
But this was, in a way, another order of it, that these people have been trained, all these nurses, and indeed some people who weren't trained to be ITU nurses, but were things like speech and language therapists.
Yeah, because they were stepping in, weren't they? To help out.
Exactly. Yeah. To do that, I've never experienced that. And certainly when I came out at first, I wouldn't be telling you this without just weeping. I had the weepies when I sort of came out of the coma, but luckily I'm sort of holding on to myself these days. Yeah.
Well, you talked about the sort of after effects of you know, having been so unwell with your thyroid condition for such a long time and needing psychological support for that. I mean, what you went through with COVID was so much more extreme and intense and near-death experience. I'm not surprised you had the weepies. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it is a trauma. I mean, the only thing is it's not a trauma that I witnessed because I was in a coma. I think when you have an accident, or, you know, we hear about soldiers, obviously, have done for more than 100 years now, experiencing a kind of trauma, you know, not a kind of trauma, a trauma, just seeing terrible things bodies destroyed in front of your eyes and things like that.
Mm.
This kind of inner trauma where you're not fully witness, it is different.
I'm sure.
It's kind of, it's almost like a lack of knowing that is the traumatic thing. It's a bit different because
that's a mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's an extraordinary, and thank goodness that you've made such a good recovery. So we were all very worried about you. We were obviously seeing the tweets from your wife, and when we saw, oh, he's home and he's starting to do better, it was a huge relief. And you know, to see you now so well and so calm and coherent and everything is just wonderful. Do you think, or were you told by your doctors that your thyroid condition affected how COVID impacted you at all?
No one's made any relation between the two. I mean, they're struggling with what it is and how it affects the body. I mean, I was talking, doctors invited me onto a webinar just to say how I'd felt and what experience I'd had. And there they were contemplating the possibility, right, that COVID had affected this thing that when we did O-level biology and so on all those years ago, we described as the powerhouse of the cell. It's called the mitochondrion, and it sits in every cell. And this is the cunning means that humans and all mammals have developed to metabolize food and to use and to get energy from it, energy to move and think and everything else. And so the mitochondrion is crucial to our whole existence. And there are millions of them in our body. And they're wondering whether COVID is having an effect on the mitochondria. So they're wondering. Now it's quite interesting because the mitochondria come into the thyroid, because the thyroid is affecting metabolism. So I went, well, that's interesting. I haven't had a conversation about it, but you know, there we are. We're back with our little tiny friend, the powerhouse of the cell, as they told me when I did O-level biology in 1962. That maybe there's something to learn there. Who knows?
We had a really interesting talk from Dr. Bernard Koo in February, who had, with some colleagues, just completed a study on what happens with thyroid hormones in COVID-19 patients. And they were saying that typically they do see that thyroid hormones are affected, but that then they in everyone that they studied, they had returned back to normal.
I was told that. Sorry,
I
left that out. I was told that I had a
blood
test very soon after I came out of hospital. I had a blood test. They said my levels were depressed. They weren't going to give me any more thyroxine because they expected it to rise within about 6 weeks. I then had another blood test, I think, as I remember it, and it was all back to normal.
Right. So that I was going to ask, had they changed your medication at all? So they didn't. Did they continue to administer, do you know, your levothyroxine during your COVID coma?
Right. As far as I know, they did. I think, I mean, I can remember asking. So obviously I had a cannula in my arm here, in my wrist, and everything was going in there. So I think they just basically pour stuff in there. Hello, we've got to knock him out for another week. Here it goes, glonk. So whatever is the knocking out drug these days. Oh, he might be in pain, chuck some painkiller in. Oh, thyroxine, glug, glug, glug.
Don't forget that, very important.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I became conscious, they come around with these beautiful little white cardboard and paper cups.
With the pills in them.
With the pills in them. And I'd say every morning, is my thyroxine in there? Along with the vitamin D, I don't know, or the blood thinners, of course. Yes, I was on a version of warfarin. And so I had this little row of pills, and I'd always say, is my thyroxine in there?
Yeah, really important. What would you say has helped you most in your recovery from COVID? Do you have any tips to share?
Right. Because I was in intensive care, I don't know whether I'm talking about COVID or intensive care or both. Basically, if you've had COVID and you're in intensive care, that's the only thing I can speak with any expertise on. I heard something that's been very important. I heard that for every day you're in intensive care, it takes you a week to recover.
Right.
As a little rule of thumb, that is brilliant. So I came out of intensive care at the end of May 2020. So I was in for 48 days. So in other words, May the 1st should be the moment. So here we are talking April the 12th, and people want to...
When you emerge like a butterfly, Michael, like a butterfly from your chrysalis.
Well, I will have had 48 weeks on round about the 1st of May, something like that.
Yeah.
So so that's good. That means be patient. Do push yourself a little bit, but not a lot. Do exercise, get yourself stronger, and whatever suits you, but go walking. And, if you've got light weights, baked bean tins, whatever, use those, get the body working, but don't push it. Only do what you can do, and try and get that balance between your inclination to be lazy and your inclination to push yourself. So try and sort of get it. So what I do is I try and walk round the block for 45 minutes to an hour.
That's fabulous.
Every 2 or 3 days. And I try to make it interesting. So I try to walk around, look in the shops, say hello to people, and all the rest of it, rather than sort of being a loner and doing it around the park. I've done that, and it's sort of quite difficult and can get a bit depressing. So I go around, put my mask on, and I walk around the block and sort of look at funny signs and try to make up poems.
Nice. Poems is such a good therapy, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what I'd recommend. Going for a walk, push it. I went from not being able to stand up in June, June the 3rd. I couldn't stand up. I can date it. I tried to, and I couldn't, and had 4 people to try and hold me up because I'm a big bloke, to being able to walk for an hour and a half now, you see. So
it's wonderful.
It's possible.
It's really good. And I think, for anybody with any health condition who feels really, really debilitated, I think that's a really good message, just to be gentle with yourself. The importance of being connected with other people and sort of letting yourself be entertained and maybe do something creative, because that's just good for your well-being, and it's more likely to make you motivated to actually do those little walks and things. And, what a fantastic recovery you've made.
Try to put into words how you feel. Try to put into words. And they don't have to be sentences. They don't have to be clever. Okay. It can be very simple. You can just put down a single word and then put another word underneath it and another word underneath it. And if that's finished, turn over the page and do another one. Just get an ordinary school exercise book or just sheets of paper. Okay. And if there are 2 words, then put 2 words down. If there's 10 words, put 10 words down. But don't feel under pressure to be that there's a teacher there saying you must write in sentences, or you must have metaphors, or you must have similes, or you must be grammatical, or you must spell right. None of it matters. Just put words down. And then if you're daydreaming, then just open a new page and just jot down the daydream. If you have a nightmare, jot down the nightmare. Just jot it down as if you're in the nightmare. The man walks in, or, the window's breaking. So make it in the present tense, like it's a sort of football match. Yeah. And just keep jotting these things down. So it's like it's not a diary in the sense of today I went for a walk. You don't need to do that. You just say legs, funny, felt like cardboard, bomph. That's it. No more. Doesn't matter.
It's like a haiku, isn't it?
Yeah. Turn over the page. And just doing that helps release and relieve the pressure in your mind of the thoughts you're having.
Oh, that's so profound and so perfect. And can I just say also so timely, because one of the things we're doing for International Thyroid Awareness Week is we're partnering with a literary journal, which I've mentioned to you previously, Famadan Journal, which is run by a group of young people who've experienced thyroid disease, in fact, all people of colour as well, and primarily women. And they are going to be doing an issue of their journal published on World Thyroid Day, and they're inviting people now to submit poems or other pieces of writing about their thyroid conditions, or it could also be about other autoimmune conditions or mental health generally. And yeah, I was going to say, what tips have you got for people who want to write creatively about their thyroid condition? You've just said it, and that's wonderful. You couldn't have given better guidance, and you've written so such incredible poetry in all of your books, but particularly the poetry that you've written about your thyroid condition. And we've shared some of that on our website, and people have just loved it. And I know already we've had people inspired by that and have been sending submissions to Famadan Journal. But yeah, that's just
perfect. This
perfect.
is not, my nose is out of print.
But you can get it on Amazon.
Right. So technically I own the copyright. So all you have to do is write to me and say, can we print that poem?
Yes.
And if I'm feeling nice, which I do, I will say yes, because it's out of copyright. So that's, sorry, not out of copyright. It's out of print.
Yes.
The copyright stays with me. So that means that if you want to use any of the poems in that book, and you want to use those as examples, then if you write to me and I'll be nice, the answer is yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, we would love to use one of those poems, or you might even feel inspired to write a new poem.
Indeed. Yes. Well, I did the other day, didn't I?
Yes.
That one I wrote. Yeah, I think, didn't you say to me, could you use it or something?
Is that a new one? I thought that was one of yours, is Not My Nose.
No, it was a kind of I quite often cannibalize my own poems, so I
because
rehash
it's got
and
phrases
recycle.
that I recognise.
Exactly.
I read the book when I first got it, so so that is in fact a new poem that's not been in the book.
And you can use that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thrilled. That's amazing. That's really exciting. Thank you very, very much. On the subject of tips, I just have one more very specific question regarding tips that was submitted by a lady in our network called Sandra. And Sandra wants to know, she always has cold hands and feet. What type of gloves and socks do you wear to stop your fingers and toes freezing to the bone in our lovely UK weather?
Yes, I have a similar problem. Right, several things. I find that nearly always my hands get cold because I'm not breathing properly. Right, so
breathe more.
So what we do is we tend not to breathe with our diaphragms. We tend to breathe shallowly here.
Yeah.
This actually prevents your circulation from really working. So in order to breathe properly, we breathe in with 4, hold for a sec, breathe out with resistance. Now, it's very boring, and you think, why should I do that? And people in the room think, what's the matter with you? Will you shut up? So you have to do it in the bathroom or somewhere else, but do it for a minute and you will find your circulation improves. So
that's such a good tip.
In for 4 through the nose, hold for half a second or a second, out through the mouth, trilling with resistance. Doing F sound or whatever with resistance.
It makes you feel warm, doesn't it?
It does. So that's one key thing.
Brilliant. That's a great tip. Never mind the gloves and socks, Sandra. Breathe.
Well, that's one. I sleep with socks on.
Oh, nice cozy ones.
Woolly, soft socks. So I sleep with socks on. And when I'm out for a walk, I sometimes wear thermal gloves. And sometimes I do that thing. I have a jacket where I can put my hands in there next to my chest, so I can get the warmth of my body. I mean, mostly the warmth of your own body will do it. That's why we stick our hands in our armpits as one of the best ways to get warm, because it does that. On the other hand, it does stop you moving. But so that's the key thing, I'd say. And I have thermal gloves and woolly socks. Also, any footwear that constrains your feet will make you cold.
Yes.
So you need loose footwear so that you've got air, because air is a fantastic way to air around your body is fantastic. That's why we have wool, because wool has the air in it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why natural wool. So wear, if you can, natural wool socks, and also loose shoes. So the shoes shouldn't be tight. So they're a bit unfashionable, but I'm sorry about that. But that's another thing, another trick.
I think that's good. I think that's very important. I just have one more question, which is, what are you most excited about at the moment?
It's the reception for this book. I've done many different kinds of love.
Yeah.
A story of life, death, and the NHS, I think it's called. No, love, not life. Oh, well, it's the same thing. Story of love, death, and the NHS. And the reception has been overwhelming.
No, it's an incredible book.
It has been, people have been moved by it, which is one thing, and other people have been inspired and uplifted by it, and that's very nice too. And some people have found also that the way I write actually enables them to think and write themselves, and that makes me very pleased as well, because I always like to think one kind of writing is like a trigger for another kind of writing. And all those responses have been absolutely lovely. So yes, at this very moment, that's what's, it makes, look at this gesture I'm doing. It's sort of keeping me buoyed up. There you go. I'm afloat. I'm afloat.
And you know, you should be very proud of that book, because it's something amazing that you've created from such a traumatic experience, and a real gift to the world. And the fact that it's actually encouraging other people to write as well is amazing. And just to sort of, this is such a tribute to the people in the NHS who cared for you as well. I think you know, it's really special. So you should be excited and proud about that. Yes. So that was the last question. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Michael. It's been an absolute pleasure. And
thank you, Lorraine. Thanks for having me.
And inspiring. We're very excited, obviously, that International Thyroid Awareness Week and World Thyroid Day is coming up at the end of May, and we're hugely excited that we can maybe involve you in that. Thank you very much for your support. It's amazing. And we're also very excited about Famadan Journal, which is encouraging anyone with thyroid disease, or indeed another autoimmune condition, or indeed any mental health issues, to write creatively about their conditions. And thank you for giving us some great hints and tips for how people might go about doing that if it's something they don't feel confident about. I'm actually writing a poem a day at the moment, which I never thought I would do. I'm really enjoying it. It's really great. Yeah, so I'm sure people really enjoy watching this interview. It's been really terrific, and thank you for being our thyroid friend. We will definitely keep in touch, and I'll just sign off now for the Thyroid Trust 24 questions. If anyone's really enjoyed watching this and they'd like to make a donation to the charity, then obviously there's a donation button on our website, and we'd be thrilled, because we are very small and very new. We need all the support we can get. And Michael, hopefully speak to you again soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Lots of love.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thanks very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.